Welcome one, welcome all to Wake Up Worlds, our ESPN Esports Worlds 2020 program. I'm Arda, he's Fion. We are with you every step of the way until a world champion is crowned. The group stage is over. Playoffs are upon us. Let's get you caught up on the schedule so that you're completely up to speed. The quarterfinals begin tomorrow. Begin with DAMWON taking on DRX. On Friday, Suning versus JDG. Saturday, TES will fight with FNATIC. And Sunday, the all-G matchup, GEN.G taking on G2. We will be with you every step of the way. There will be a post-show every day after every quarterfinal matchup. Tentative start time, 11 a.m. Eastern. Tyler, as we take a look at the playoff bracket, how excited are you for these matchups? Is this the best case scenario for possible matchups in the elimination stage of Worlds?
I am exceedingly excited for these quarterfinals. I've made no bounds about it. I said it on Twitter. I said that the group stage was one of the worst group stages, if not the worst group stage in Worlds history. It was bare of really any excitement of which teams were going to get out, outside of maybe Team Liquid barely almost making the miracle run until it wasn't, and they never got a tiebreaker from it. I think this is the strongest 8 we've ever had for a world championship. I think all 8 teams feel like they could win a world championship on the right day. Usually what happens when you have such a barren group stage of, favorites beating the underdogs and, seeing these teams just kind of have a level or a gap between the teams not advancing, you get really, really good quarterfinal matchups. And that's what we have with this top 8. We have 3 Korean teams, 3 Chinese teams, and 2 European teams. And the bracket has made it so that the only same regional matchup, the only chance we have at a region versus region matchup from the same league is if FNATIC beats all the Chinese teams and if G2 beats all the Korean teams, if we get a Europe versus Europe final, which I don't think is very likely, but if it does happen, what a storyline would that be? But yeah, these matches are all 4 of them are really, really great matchups that you don't want to miss. And I'm so excited that we go from a very lukewarm group stage, which I will stand by to my dying breath, to a very exciting top 8. And also, the most fun thing about it is that there's no more North American teams, which means I get to take off my dunce hat, my optimism hat, my fanboy hat, where I optimistically believe that these NA teams have a chance to do something at Worlds. And I can now just look at it, just all objectively. I look at the chessboard and I can see all 8 pieces clearly. I have no more fanboytism. There's no more subjectivism in my predictions. All I have left is my strategic mind, and I can see all 8 of these teams for how good they are individually. So that's the good part of North America not being at Worlds. I can actually look at these 8 matches and look at them without any sort of bias at all.
Ah, yes, the completely unbiased Tyler Fion on Fire Erzberger.
Oh, yeah.
By the way, in our archives on YouTube, you can check out his Chovy optimism chart. That is available on the YouTube channel /ESPN Esports. What we're going to do for this program is we're going to break down each quarterfinal matchup. We're going to look at the lane matchups. We're going to look at the position matchups. And then we're going to make some predictions. And then the remaining or the quarterfinal matchups, we will have shows afterwards, like I mentioned, and all of our archived content. If you're a North America fan and you want to hear Tyler and I talk about how to fix North America, what happened to North America, all of those conversations have already happened, and they are available on our YouTube channel /ESPN Esports. DAMWON takes on DRX. That is a matchup that is happening on Thursday. That is the first quarterfinal matchup. Taking a look at some of the positional matchups in the top lane, you have Nuguri taking on Duran. In the AD carry position, Ghost and Deft in support, Beryl and Keria. The 2 matchups that we want to highlight here, Tyler, we're going to highlight the jungle matchup a lot. In fact, we're going to highlight it all 4 matchups because it's the key matchup, and that's the one that benefits the meta the most. But let's start with the mid lane. We got the Church of Chovy, hallelujah, taking on Showmaker. That's a heavyweight matchup, Tyler.
It's a heavyweight matchup, and the reason why I wanted this to be the key matchup when looking at this series is if DRX has any chance of beating DAMWON, if there's any chance of them pulling off the major upset here, it has to come through the mid lane of Chovy. And so far, as we've seen in all of in the majority of our group stage games, mid laners have been more enablers. They've been enabling their jungler. We're seeing a lot of Gallia. We're seeing a lot of Tank Set. We're seeing a lot of these. They are kind of accessories towards the jungler role. And these two teams are kind of the marquee of that kind of style with Piosik and Canyon. Those two players are leading the tournament so far in kills. They led the group stages in kills as junglers, and Showmaker and Chovy have been more of accessories to the jungler. But I really do think if there's any chance for DRX to pull off the upset, it has to come from Chovy. And it's not going to come from Chovy on Galio. No matter how good of a Galio player he is, I don't see a way where DRX wins this series if they try to play Piosik. Piosik's a very good player, but I think they're ace player. They're where everything comes and goes is through Chovy. And if not Chovy, it's through Deft. And I really do think that if they try to play the same style of matchup with DAMWON as they played during the group stage, they're going to get left in the dust. We saw it in the best of 5 grand final at the LCK, where DAMWON handily took DRX to the cleaners and beat them 3-0. And unless Chovy or Deft has a memorable series, an iconic series, I don't see a way where DAMWON loses this. I think DRX can make it close. They've been far better than I thought they would be coming into this tournament. Piosik has been a marvel. He's been a revelation. He's been excellent. But I think they're meeting their match with DAMWON, where I think DRX does everything DAMWON does, but DAMWON does it better. With DRX, they do everything at an 8 out of 10 level, where DAMWON does it at a 10 out of 10 level. And the only real ace up the sleeve they have is Chovy. And if Chovy's on the Galio, if he's on these tanky, utility mid laners, I don't see a way where DAMWON really loses the series unless Canyon just has a giant mental boom and has the worst series of his career.
Hey, Piosik's been popping off. My boy, you got to give some credit to my boy.
He's excellent.
Just a little bit. Does he win the jungle matchup, though, in a best of 5, in your opinion? In a best of 5?
Versus Canyon, if they're both at their best, I don't see how Canyon loses this. Canyon has been, alongside SOFM, the best jungler in the entire competition, in my point of view so far. I think Selfie as well has been up there as one of the 3 key hard carry junglers. Piosik was marvelous in the group stage, even doing well. DRX has been regularly in the group stage as the strongest early game team. They get out to 2,000 gold leads, even against TES in their first game. They had a huge gold lead. I just worry how they can transition those really good early games into mid games into a late game. And when it comes to team fighting, I just think DAMWON just outclasses DRX. I don't think DRX is a bad team by any stretch of the imagination. I think DAMWON's the best team still in the tournament. It's just a really rough draw. And this is coming from one of the archdukes of the Church of Chovy. I want my man Chovy, Mr. Hallelujah himself, to make it to the semis. I want to see the man raise up the Summoners Cup before he signs with an NA team this offseason. Please, someone in NA, just give him an offer sheet.
It's okay. He can win Worlds with an NA team, and everyone. Oh yeah, that would be the ultimate best case scenario for Tyler Erzberger. That would be the greatest moment ever. Before we move on from this matchup, they being DAMWON, pardon me, stomped DRX in the LCK Summer Split Finals, right? How much of that do you think DRX is thinking about, or do you think that even matters on the world stage?
I think it matters. I think it's in the back of the head. And I think for Chovy, who's a player who is, I honestly do believe Chovy is one of, if not the best player in the world. I think we saw it with Knight, and it's him and Jackie Love. And there's a few players that can, throw their name in that hat to see who really is the true best player right now in League of Legends. He still has no titles. He's been in 4 LCK finals, lost all of them. He played in the World Championship last year. They fell in the quarterfinals to IG. He has a Kespik Cup, but when it comes to all-time great, the Kespik Cup isn't getting you anywhere near the Faker zone or the Uzi zone. You really need that big international title, that big domestic title, to put you over the line. And it's difficult because I think if DRX had gone to Suning or another team, even a Gen.G, I feel like they would have had a lot of confidence, a lot of momentum coming in. But they have faced their boogeyman straight off the gate, where they just got decimated by DAMWON, and they do everything DAMWON does. Like I said, they play very similar styles, but DAMWON's just better at it. They're better at it. And on Dorian, I want to shout Dorian a bit. Dorian is leading the team DRX in DPM in the group stages. He had a really good group stage, but I don't know if he can handle Naguri. I don't know if Piosik can handle Canyon. I just think that DAMWON is just better in every position except mid lane. I do think that in mid lane, that Chovy could beat Showmaker. I do think Deft and Kyria could beat Beryl and Ghost, but I think in the current meta, the bot lane is so unattached from everything, right? Where it's a lot more of the support roaming around the map with the jungler, and the AD carry is just kind of left there on their own devices. I don't know if you can really win through the bot lane unless you really hard focus it by putting, if you really just go Caitlyn Lux straight out, we're just going to win through the bot lane. Maybe that's a way that, DRX can try to flip the script by trying to win through that bot lane and trying to not make it about the jungler matchup, because I do think if it's jungle versus jungle, if they both try to enable their jungler to be the ace of the team, I think Canyon's just better than Piosik. And that's nothing against Piosik. I think he's had a great tournament. I just think Canyon is one of, if not the best jungler at Worlds 2020.
So that matchup will be Thursday. On Friday, we will see Suning taking on JDG. The jungle matchup there will be Kanavi on JDG's side taking on Style of Me, one of the breakout stars on the world stage, someone that is on the lips of many League of Legends fans, and people talking about SOFM and his great play throughout Worlds, coming in with a lot of hype, and he's certainly lived up to it. Can he continue here with Suning against JDG, Tyler?
This is I think if it goes, I think if Suning doesn't get really big leads in the early game, I have a strong case saying that JD Gaming should win this. If this gets to a 15-20 minute mark and JD Gaming is around a 1K deficit, 2K deficit, and Suning isn't just rolling over them with SFOM, with a huge jungle lead, with taking over the camps of Kanavi, kind of ruling the jungle. If being in the top lane isn't, popping off on his hard carry picks, I really don't see a way where Suning wins this. I think JD Gaming overall is the stronger team than the tighter team. I think in terms of cohesion, when it comes to the 5-on-5 team fighting, I think when it comes to mid to late game, they're far superior. I think the opening for Suning is in that early game where that individual style can take over. And it really does boil down to Style of Me and Bin in the top lane really having to take over this series where SOFM, God, his name is so difficult, Arda. His name is so difficult.
I mean, it's 4 letters, Tyler.
I'm from North America. I'm from North America, man. Our education system isn't the best up down here. So just letting you know, going to be 4 letters, a bit difficult from North America, but Style of Me.
It's a little too tough, right?
Style. Oh, God, gotta get to me. Even when they're out of the tournament, you still plug it at me. But no, Style of Me is a player where if you look at his stats, he leads all players when it comes to CS differential at 10 minutes because he just farms. All of his mojo comes down to that early domination of farm, where if he can get that 20, 30 CS lead in the jungle in the first 10 minutes, he is off to the races, and his team can really rally around him. And you have been in the top lane, usually on these hard-carrying top laners like the Jax, the Jace, even the Renekton to an extent, and they want to, carry all that top lane, the jungle, and it's a lot about individuality with Suning, where for JD Gaming, they're all about the team fight. They're all about the 5-on-5. They're all about taking small losses and turning them into big victories, where they're not always going to dominate you in lane. And we saw that a few times in the group stage where they got beat down in the early game, but they came back through smart team fighting and just getting together in the mid game and having the right decisions to kind of help them through their lackadaisical play sometimes in that laning phase, where you don't see Yagao as like this hard carry mid laner. Loken and Lumao, they're good at picking the Ashe, picking the Caitlyn, doing fast pushes to get dragging control for Kanavi. But a lot of the good things that happen with JD Gaming come after that 10 to 15 minute mark, where they are scaling up and they're ready to make some plays on the map, where Zoom can teleport, can make some big plays. So I think for Suning, their win condition is winning early. If they can get those early level 1 advantages, if they can get Style of Me into those positions where he can really just take over the jungle, get those 10, 20, 30 CS leads over Kanavi. And if Bin especially can have a big series against Zoom, who I think is the best top laner in the tournament still, but I think Bin showed in the group stage he is a game changer. He's an X factor. Sometimes he might fail. Sometimes his hard, aggressive picks might flop. But when they work out, when he can get that early advantage in the top lane, he can reliably carry. And don't ask G2 about him, because his barrel sent G2 the second seed in the group. So Bin and Style Me are the key players if they want to pull off the upset. I still think JD Gaming, in my opinion, are the heavy favorites. I still think JD Gaming, for me, is one of my finalists to make it to the Pudong Stadium on October 31st. But this is a lot closer than I thought coming into the tournament. If this was pre-tournament, I would say Suning gets blown out. I would say that JD Gaming is far too strong. But after seeing what kind of level Style of Me and Bin are at, I really do like their top side. And I really do think they could find some advantages in the early game that they could propel them to thrashing victories. Because I really do think individually, Suning is no far worse than JD Gaming. It's very close. They might even be better individually than JD Gaming. I just think JD Gaming as an overall team, as a unit, is better than Suning.
Suning impressed in the group stage. Of course, they had the tiebreaker against G2 and defeated them, going as a 1 seed out of Group A. And now they find themselves against JD Gaming. That game is on Friday. On Saturday, it will be one of the favorites coming into the tournament, and maybe people consider them to be the favorite going into the tournament. I'm talking about TES, Top Esports. They'll be taking on one of the 2 European contingents left in the tournament, FNATIC. Now, this is a very, very interesting matchup. You got Karsa versus Selfmade in the jungle, Knight versus Nemesis at mid lane. That is a spicy matchup, especially with Knight and everything that comes, the cachet that comes with the mighty Knight, Tyler. How does FNATIC compete competitively in this one?
This is a weird series. I think if you look at the series 2 months ago, 3 months ago, and it's not in this meta, not this really specific meta we're in right now that we've seen through the first 2 weeks of the tournament in the group stage, I would give Top Esports a 90% chance of winning, 95% chance. I think their laners are just too strong. I think Karsa would be great at enabling them. I don't think there's a way for FNATIC to really stop them, especially after seeing FNATIC kind of have those bit of a lackluster games in the group stages. I think for the most part, FNATIC were really good. I think they had some games where they fell behind and kind of misstepped. But I think that they showed some good play. But if I'm looking at Top Esports of how they came to this tournament, especially Nemesis, a player who's not the strongest laner, he's much more of a team-focused guy, has more, his unorthodox picks throughout the Veigar, more enabling his players like Selfmade to kind of do his own thing. He's not really the ace player of the team, but if he had to play against Knight, who is the hard carry, the MVP of the LPL, he would get crushed. But we're in this meta where it's not about enabling the mid laner; it's about enabling the jungler. And if you look at the stats and just kind of the disparity of how Top Esports played in the summer in the LPL to how they play now, it's totally flipped. Jackie Love is still the hard carry of the team. He's still eating good. He's still eating like he did back in the LPL. He's still getting those 600 plus damage per minute statistics off. He's still the hard carry of the team. The real issue here is Knight. In the LPL summer, he was averaging 500 plus DPM, hard carrying, one of the leaders in kills in the entire league. In the group stages, he's been down 200 DPM. So he's doing almost half less damage for his entire team, because he is playing a much different role, where he is not playing as the focal point of the team, where he is more often than not enabling Karsa. Karsa was one of the lowest DPMs in LPL because his job was not to get early advantages for himself. He did not care if he was down 5 CS at 10 minutes. He did not care if his gold was down below the enemy jungler. He was enabling 369. He was enabling Knight. He was enabling Jackie Love. That was his job. The team is so strong laning wise. They win through lane, they win the game. They are mechanical gods. But in this meta, it's a lot more about the jungler getting ahead and the jungler being the one to kind of snowball the leads. Where if you look at it, if I pick a player to snowball in this meta, I actually prefer Selfmade, FNATIC's jungler, over Karsa. I think Selfmade is a more reliable hard carry than Karsa. Not saying that Karsa can't do it. He's done it so far. They went 5-1 in the group stage with this kind of style, with Knight not putting up the numbers you would expect from the number one player in the tournament. But it's a cause of concern because this is not the top esports that dominate LPL. This is not the top esports that put the fear in the heart of everyone, where Knight is hard carrying, and it's a lane kingdom of Karsa, being that point guard, putting everyone in the right position. He is now put in the position of the shooting guard. He is now the one who has to get at those kills, who has to put up the damage, who has to get those early CS advantages. and he can do it. But I think he's a far more cerebral player than an actual, brawny, I'm going to hard carry player like you have with a Selfmade or a Kanan or even a Piosik as you see in this tournament. So for me, I think the win condition for FNATIC is Selfmade. I mean, most of these matchups is the jungler, but I do think they might have an advantage in the jungle role when it comes to this specific style. In this style where it's about enabling the jungler, I think FNATIC might have an edge here. And if they can kind of, if Selfmade can be up to the day, if he can be the star player on the day and play out of his mind, FNATIC might be able to steal one here. They might be able to steal 3 games from TS because we saw it with FlyQuest. FlyQuest was able to beat top esports, and sure, we can talk about how
airport FlyQuest. Let's clarify.
Yeah, but still
FlyQuest. Still,
no,
you're right.
Yeah, but top esports, that was a game that top esports had to win. We can talk about airport FlyQuest all we want. TS had to win that game. If TS won that game, they are, securing themselves closer to that number 1 position. That was a big loss for TS, where I think that they show that they do have holes in their game, and they have not been perfect during the group stages, where they did fall down very early against DRX because Piosik was able to get early advantages versus Karsight in the jungle, and they weren't able to stop him. So I still think TS is favored. I still think TS is a strong team. I want to see more from Knight. I don't think Knight had a bad group stage because he is playing the job he's supposed to play. He is not the star player in this meta, but I want to see more from him. You can carry from the mid lane in this meta. We saw it from Flower of Evil, who hard carried FlyQuest and all their victories on Syndra and Azir. I just want to see more from Knight. And if we see more from Knight, if Knight plays more at his peak level, that 10 out of 10 best player in the world peak, I don't think FNATIC has a chance. But if they try to play through Karsa and they try to do this jungle versus jungle matchup to see who can win out in the early game, I do think that FNATIC has a chance. I do think they have a smart enough team where they can see those advantages and exploit them.
Well, thank you, Tyler, for feeding into my EU versus EU finals fantasy, because you're giving me hope here that FNATIC have a shot against top esports.
A chance,
which is great.
A shot.
Put a number to it if you were to say. They play 100 times in this meta.
25, 30.
That's more than a long shot.
They're a good team. They're a good team, and I think this meta really does favor them. I think Selfmade is an awesome jungler, and I do think you want a hard carry jungler in this meta, and Karsa is better at enabling his laners, where in this meta it's about his laners enabling him. And TS wasn't perfect in the group stage, and I do think FNATIC can find some wins. So yeah, 25%.
So, I'll take that. Listen, I am a big proponent, and we'll get to that in my predictions. I'm not going to say too much here, but I am a huge proponent of the Dream EU versus EU final, simply for the storyline. More on that later. That's one half of the EU component. FNATIC versus TES, that's happening on Saturday. And then on Sunday, the quarterfinals conclude with the all-G matchup. Gen.G taking on G2. We have Jankos and Klid in the jungle. And what about that mid lane matchup? Or pardon me, the AD carry matchup between Perks and Ruler. That's a good one.
It is a good one. And for Gen.G, they're a team that I have not been super impressed by Klid. I think Klid's had some of the worst games of a top-tier jungler at the event. I think for Gen.G, a lot of their games do fall back onto the tried-and-true ruler carry. Even in a jungle-focused meta, a lot of their games do come down to you see a lot of their games come down to 35, 40-minute kind of like standstills, and it's really Ruler on 6 items carrying the load. When Ruler plays well, they win. They went 5-0 when Ruler actually played well. In the one game that Ruler was stomped down early and he was devoid of any advantages, and they kind of took him out of the game in the laning phase, Gen.G lost to FNATIC. And props to FNATIC for finding that weakness, getting Selfmade ahead, and just kind of shutting down the bot lane, because that is the win condition of Gen.G. So for G2, can they do the same? If G2 can neutralize Ruler and they can keep him, I don't think they have to dominate him similarly to how FNATIC did in the game they won. I don't think they have to kill him twice in lane the first 10 minutes. I don't think they have to kind of exploit life picking. I think he played Ignite, Exhaust, and he didn't pick the Flash and Recon, which kind of just tilted the bottom lane to FNATIC's favor in that game. I don't think they need that huge advantage in the early game, but I do think they need to neutralize him, which means keep him in check. Do not let him get early kills. Do not let him be a focal point. Try to keep him at a standstill and a standby and win through your power points, which is Jankos, which is Wonder, which is Caps in the mid lane. I think those positions, they have advantages. And I think the top win of Rascal and Wonder is a lot closer than people would give it. I think Rascal has been the most underrated player at Worlds so far. I think he's getting a lot more attention now, but if you just look at his stats, he has a plus 10 CS differential at 10 minutes. He's doing wonderfully. He might arguably be the best player outside of Ruler on Gen.G currently. But I do think G2 does have the advantages with the jungle mid tandem of Jankos and Caps versus Clid and BDD. BDD's had a solid tournament. Clid has left a lot more to be desired in a jungle-focused meta. You want to see a lot from your jungler, and I don't think Jankos has been blowing the world away. I think G2 and overall has been quite sloppy in their group games. I think they can look at their games and be not so proud of them. I think G2 has a lot more to give. I do think G2 should be favored in this matchup, even though they come in as the second seed. I think Gen.G should have lost some games that they won, especially that TSM game. They should have lost to TSM on their airport buff, but sometimes a 5-man sleep isn't good enough. So sad to say, but I think Gen.G, if Clay doesn't up his game by a lot, and if G2 realizes that Ruler is the win condition of Gen.G and does not let these games get to the 30-35 minute mark where it's a close game, then I think G2 wins. But if they do let Gen.G get to the 30-minute mark, or if they lose, if Herx and Mickey X just lose lane, or if they give up free kills in the bomb lane to Ruler, Gen.G can storm away this series because Gen.G is a very good team. They're very fundamentally strong. They know their win condition, and that's Ruler. So you look at the bomb lane, you can see if Ruler is effective. If he's not effective and he's kind of just left to his own devices and everything else on the map goes G2's way, G2 should win this series 3-2, 3-1. But if Ruler does have a say in the series, if he does play at the level he thinks he can, and he can really control the series through the bomb lane, Gen.G should win. I think Ruler is the X Factor player here. Everyone knows it. I think both sides know that Ruler is at his peak, probably the best player he is a former world champion. He's a former world champion MVP. So I'm really excited to see how G2 can kind of maneuver around the Ruler win condition, because Ruler has been in form this tournament, but when he is kind of taken off his form, when he's kind of pushed around, when he's not given his full, when he's not given his full time to kind of ramp up, that's when Gen.G finds themselves in trouble. But when he does get to that late game, he's more often than not going to win. So G2 can't afford these sloppy games. If they have a game like they had in Suning, where you have that 35, 40-minute classic versus Suning, where it's back and forth, mechanical, the Lee Sin kicks and the dragon fights, that's a game where Gen.G just wins. Because I don't think that I would always put my money on Ruler in those 35, 40-minute games. So G2 has to win decisively in the mid game, and if they can do that, they should be able to get through Gen.G.
Before we get to our predictions and exactly how we believe Worlds will shake down, I want to give you, and I've alluded to this earlier, Tyler talked about it in terms of the playoff placements as well. In my opinion, the greatest storyline that could come out of this would be FNATIC and G2 making their way all the way to the final. Tyler, before you react, hang on. The reason being, look at how many storylines and how many opinions. This would be the most debated and talked about thing to happen at Worlds in terms of any scenario that were to happen here. And the reason is you have multiple things going on at once. Now, FNATIC has to go through all of the remaining LPL teams in order to qualify for the final, ostensibly, both rounds. Then G2 have to do the same with the LCK teams. So the storyline of FNATIC vanquishes China and G2 vanquishes South Korea on their way to the final. That's number one. Number two, then you're left with the El Clasico of esports, FNATIC versus G2. These teams hate each other. They've been at each other's throats for years. And now they're determining a world championship. If you omit 2011, Europe's first world championship. So that is a huge deal, and it comes down to two European teams, which has never happened before. So you have a new situation in something that nobody would have ever predicted, having gone through the two biggest and best regions to do so. To me, that is like a incredible scenario. Unlikely, yes, but just imagine the storylines, Tyler.
I think that's a very. I mean, I think if on a Western point of view, I think I agree with you. If you are a European fan, if this was pure LEC, you're from Germany or from Europe, you're a huge Western fan, then yeah, I think this is true. Like that would be the biggest final. I think Riot Games would laugh at you and say, please no. I think they want a Chinese team in the final. They just want a Chinese team in the final, to be perfectly honest. Like they want a Chinese team in the Pudong Stadium playing in front of, the possible 100 million people tuning in over, online in China. So I think if it's a Europe versus Europe final, that's terrible for Riot. I think Riot would be like pulling their hair out, being like, how can we let this happen? Like, oh
how
man,
could we let this happen?
Like the viewership
is terrible.
Yeah, the viewership is terrible. The viewership. Obviously, I'm of the mind where I always like to see a region versus region final. I don't care if it's Europe versus China, China versus Korea, Korea versus Europe. I always like seeing inter-regional championships, where I vastly prefer that over the domestic, China versus China final, or Korea versus Korea, or in this case, Europe versus Europe. So I do see the appeal of the G2 FNATIC final. I do think it'd be very exciting. The two last losers of the World Championships. I think that's another thing you didn't mention, where it'd be the 2019 runner-up and the 2018 runner-up fighting for the 2020 championship. Kind of see who can, find redemption in their losses. But I think overall, for me personally, I will always prefer the China versus Korea or the EU versus China kind of final. I want to see G2 versus Top, or FNATIC versus DAMWON. That excites me more with the interregional excitement, because what's going to happen if a GU versus EU. All the EU fans are going to be, oh, we win either way. It's a championship. It's a celebration of the LEC. Woo! Like, people are going to feel like they've already won in the next set. So I always like to see the regional versus regional final. So that's my take on the situation. But I do agree that I think for a lot of Western fans, that what they're hoping for is that miracle LEC all final.
Your bracket.
My bracket. So I have DAMWON taking DRX out. Poor Chovy. My optimism chart is already down to probably 1 or 2 at this point. Not looking great. Got a bad draw there. So DAMWON takes out DRX tonight. I have JD Gaming over Suning. Again, I think Suning does have their opportunities. It really comes down if Zoom can neutralize Bin. I think he can. And I don't think Style of Me is going to have as much leeway in the jungle as he did in Group A, where I think the Group A was a lot more sloppy. A lot of Group A's games came down to level 1s and a lot of innovative like team fights in those level 1s. So I don't think he's going to have as many advantages in the jungle as he did in Group A. So I think JD Gaming takes that. Top for Esports versus FNATIC. I think it's going to be very close. I do think that FNATIC is a very good team. I think this meta suits them quite well, and I think Selfmade's a player that is up for the challenge to be that main focal point in a jungle versus jungle meta, where he is the one being enabled by his laners. But I think TS has too much talent. I do think they'll find and navigate a way, be it either Karsa just playing better than Selfmade and showing that he is one of the best junglers of all time and he can play a myriad of styles, or they show they can carry through their lanes and not have to focus solely on the jungle, because that can always happen. Metas can always shift at Worlds. We see 1 week it being one thing, and the second week someone thinks of something new, and it's totally flipped on its head. So I wouldn't say it's confirmed that we're going to see the same kind of style of matchups in the quarterfinals as we saw in the group stages. And finally, the Gen.G versus G2 matchup. I think Ruler is the X factor. Can G2 win the mid game? Can they thrash the mid game and not let Gen.G ramp up into that 35 minute sweet spot of Ruler with his 4 to 5 items? I think they can. I think G2 wins that series competitively. I think Ruler will have one of his pop off games, but I think overall G2 will have too much for Gen.G on the day.
Tyler, take us through our your semifinal and final, just to tie a bow on this.
Oh, my semifinals and finals. So I think this would be the greatest top 4 in the world's history. I think coming into this tournament, I had all 4 of these teams 1 to 4. Number 1 being DAMWON, top esports back and forth. You have JD Gaming. You have G2, the best European team of all time. So in the all Chinese semifinals, I would have JD Gaming. This might be a surprise to some. I think a lot of people would pick top esports in this kind of situation. I see a lot of people picking top esports to make the final over JD. I still have a lot of confidence in this team, especially after seeing them play in the second week of the group stages. Obviously, they lost to PSG Town with their silly Kale composition. I don't think they're going to be that cocky in their drafting against world-class teams. No offense to PSG Talon. But I do think that in a 5-on-5 team fight, in this kind of meta, especially when we're looking at Karsa versus Kanavi, I kind of give the edge to Kanavi there. And I don't think TS has shown perfect play. I think Jackie Love is in his prime form. I think Jackie Love is playing out of his mind right now. But I think the other members of the team, especially Knight, aren't playing at their peak level. So if TS can get to that peak level in the next week or two, sure, they can definitely win the series. I think it's a 50-50 either way. These teams have played twice in 2 back-to-back domestic finals, 3-2 JD Gaming, 3-2 TES. It's going to be a coin flip either way. But for me, I think JD Gaming wins that one. And I think in the DAMWON versus G2 rivalry match from last year, DAMWON wants this match bad. So does G2, obviously. They want to make it back to the finals, make back-to-back world finals. But DAMWON wants this match bad. I think they've been waiting for the opportunity to play G2 for a year. They have something to prove. This reminds me of Samsung White from 2014, where the entire year was people saying, Samsung Blue's better, Samsung Blue's better. They were waiting for that moment to kind of show that they are better than their sister team. And I think in similar fashion, I think that it'll be a close series, a lot closer than that Samsung Blue, Samsung White series, but I think DAMWON will have a little bit too much for G2 on that day. So my final, JD Gaming versus DAMWON, as I predicted before the tournament even started, I have DAMWON winning.
So there's Tyler's bracket. My bracket is slightly different. I have G2 winning the whole thing. I won't go through every single matchup, but we can show my final bracket on the board there. I think Top Esports has a very good run. I think that it's close in the final, but finally, G2 are able to get it done after a long and winding road that includes a lot of World's heartbreak. They are able to close it out, but not without some drama. It's going to go to a game 5, and then G2 is going to close it out, and they're going to hold the Summoners Cup high in the air with a limited audience of fully Chinese fans in attendance, and it's going to be quite the sight to see. And that will definitely spark conversations about LEC as a region. And no doubt Carlos is going to proclaim that Europe is the greatest region in League of Legends history, and forget about all previous years, because all that matters is 2020. And I also have the G2 DAMWON matchup, and I agree that it's going to be a very tightly contested one. And that one, I like that one a lot, because I like that there's different motivations. DAMWON clearly has a motivation against G2, and in talking with members of DAMWON, they care about it a lot, and they want that matchup. In fact, they wanted that matchup later. They didn't want it in the quarterfinal. They wanted it later in the elimination rounds because they wanted it to sting more for G2. But then you have playoff G2, and you have the G2 with their backs against the wall. We've talked about that a lot on this program. So I just love that from a psychology standpoint, Tyler. I think that's going to be a really fun one to see where their motivations lie and how they execute. So that does it for us. As I mentioned, the quarterfinals begin on Thursday. DAMWON versus DRX is up first, and every single day thereafter, there will be one quarterfinal matchup. We will be with you every step of the way, and don't forget, on Halloween, very spooky, a world champion will be crowned, and we will be there with you as well. Join us, won't you, 11 a.m. Eastern on Thursday after DAMWON versus DRX. Good vibes and acts of kindness, everybody. We'll see you then.
I've already ordered my hot dog suit for the October 31st show. Very excited.
Have you?
Oh, yeah. Be a hot dog.
Hot
Most
dog,
American thing of all. Hot dog.